Dave, I'm going to put the first one to you. And we were just talking about cyber. And so one of the questions is, what are companies doing with that temptation or that desire to get a cyber expert on the board so you can deal with some of these new regulations and what clearly is a genuine concern for companies operating today and for boards who oversee those operations?
Yeah, Dennis, so it is one of the hot topics, has been now for a little while, because obviously these cyber attacks make headlines. Headlines are things that get the board's attention. And for that reason, many are looking to go ahead and add a cyber expert to the board. Even some companies who we normally would say, talk to us a little bit about the risk you see and the knowledge you seek, because cyber comes in so many flavors. Is to depend on your business model and whether you're a B2B or a B2C type business type. And so many are also wondering, and what's happening in general with boards, and we view, because add cyber, climate, ESG, and all this, we think you're going to see boards have generally shrunk. In actuality, they're going to grow over the coming years to add some of these experts to them, because there's no other way to solve it for now. And as Stephen said, there are people we talk to who literally have, that is in their title, cybersecurity. So like they're fully comfortable with it. But when you are the person standing tall in the corporation on the board to do that, that's a heavy lift to go ahead and do. And even they're trying, and we're trying to educate them on what that can mean, because that still evolves. But the point I was going to make is boards will be expanding due to these special issues. And boards are really loath to add a one-topic board member because board seats are so cherished, but they really aren't going to have much choice in the interim. And we're going to see some of that. What they love is, and I'll make it up, but it's a little bit of a dramatization, but I need the cyber expert. I need it on B2B, B2C, and also on other digital issues. And I need them to be a woman and ethnically diverse. And we're like, okay, so we're trying to solve a lot of things with this one issue. So what we try to do is distill down what's I gotta have and what's a nice to have here, but it is a very hot topic.
Great, thanks for that. Hey, Jan, I know we had you teed up as the compensation committee expert, but you've helped us redefine it or rename it to human capital. Mm-hmm. One of the things we haven't talked about that we talk a lot about, or have lots of other people are talking about, is, are we returning to the office or not? If we are, what's it look like? And is this quiet quitting continuing, or is that starting to subside?
Well, I think like most pendulums, they swing all the way out to one end and then they swing back towards the middle. I think we're starting to see it swing back towards the middle. We go from quiet quitting to quiet firing. But I still think, where most of this is coming down is that companies that are too hardline and have tried to implement, back to the office 5 days a week, are getting tremendous pushback from employees who don't want to do that. They like the flexibility of being able to come to the office sometimes, but not all the time. I think companies haven't quite settled into this yet. There are a lot of sort of knock-on issues that come along with that work from home. There's because on the one hand, as you're working from home, one of the biggest concerns is, how do we manage, forget all the costs associated with that, and the fact that we're all paying a lot of money for buildings that are sitting largely empty. But there's also the issue around, how do you create a culture and an engaged workforce when nobody spends time physically together, which would suggest that if you think back to an era where companies said, we've got to get rid of all of our middle layers of middle management, we're going to flatten the organization, you now have people with very large scopes of responsibility in terms of direct reports. It's really hard to manage a big group of direct reports when you physically spend no time together, when everything has to be done by Zoom. So there's one argument that says, does this mean we need to rethink how the organization is structured and span of control around our managers? On the flip side, I was just reading earlier this week that a lot of what the tech companies are talking about and all the layoffs that they've been doing is getting rid of what they call the PML, the professional management layer, that we want to go kind of, again, flatten that organization so that there are senior people and then there are the doers, and you don't have managers managing managers, managing managers, managing managers. I think there's a lot of stuff in there, then you layer on pay transparency, then you layer on when you can work from anywhere, do companies get rid of their geographic pay differentials, which almost everybody has. So there's a whole host of things that I think yet have to be worked out.
Great, thank you, Jan.
I know we said we weren't going to go too much into the economy. There is a solution for all of this. The jobs reports are so strong right now. If it changes in the other direction, the leverage is going to shift dramatically to the employers, and they'll say either come in or you're fired.
Fair point.
We're not there yet.
Hey, Travis, there's a question that talks about, with all the regulations going on, are corporations doing major rewrites of bylaws and charters to document where all these new regs are being addressed committee by committee?
No. So there are some things that are proposed where they're having to address these, but typically no. A lot of this goes into the proxy statement so that they can disclose to investors who wants to see, the investors want to see who has responsibility for what. And the cybersecurity disclosure proposal that Stephen mentioned back from May, the SEC is going to require disclosure about who has responsibility for cybersecurity, what the board's expertise is, things like that. But no, a lot of this is more when you are trying to present your board in that proxy statement and in your interactions with stockholders. That's where you really need to communicate this to the investors to make sure that you're effectively ensuring that the investors understand why they should be reelected.
Hey, Stephen, there's a couple questions coming in from an audit committee perspective, and audit committee, I guess that's the normal title for that committee, but it's also called the kitchen drawer. I always use the old Life cereal commercial. I know you're a lot younger than me, Stephen. So is Travis, and probably you too, Dave. But the old Life commercial was, give it a Mikey, he'll eat anything. Other than climate and cyber, how are audit committees, what are they dealing with, knowing they have a very full agenda and not a lot of time?
Yeah, Dennis, when I think about the audit committee, and it won't surprise anyone being that I'm an auditor, I do acknowledge, because in NACD programming, our own programming, we talk about the evolving remit of the audit committee. We've talked about the fact that NomGov kind of says, okay, you're the financial expert. What I'm kind of encouraging, and I would encourage everyone to think about, is, listen, that remit is getting larger, but don't fail to focus on your knitting, and that is financial reporting and the quality of that reporting. Again, it is fundamental to the oversight of the audit committee, but it does run some risk of being overlooked given all of the other pressing issues especially with the emergence of the climate rule and cyber. And just let me say one thing, Dennis, about that. When I think about financial reporting, managing the relationship with external audit, internal audit, what I'm thinking about, Dennis, is NomGov probably needs to sit back and say, do we really have the right skill sets on audit, so that it's not just one person sitting on that committee who is really, to Dave's point, standing tall when it comes time to looking at the financial statements that are getting filed and managing those other relationships, because all too often I see that it does fall to one individual, and the other committee members in many cases hope he or she is doing that formidable job.
Yeah, when you're that one person standing tall, it's really good when it's blue skies and sun. It gets a little knee buckling when the storm cloud comes in.